our performance, our well-being, our relationships, really every aspect of life. We have currently 100 research studies going on around the world in studying this connection between stress, emotion, our health, and our ongoing well-being. You can go to the next slide. We've had an opportunity to test these ideas in a broad range of organizations, from major health systems like Mayo Clinic, business schools like Stanford, church organizations, health plans, NASA, etc. So we've had an opportunity to really test this with diverse populations, all age groups, and seen some pretty dramatic outcomes. Go to the next slide. And the publications we've been able to achieve to validate some of this research you see listed on the screen here, both from the standpoint of health, cardiology, as well as business implications. Go to the next slide. So the core understanding that we have come up with from our research is that any human being, but this is especially true as we age, and as a 55-year-old man who has watched two brothers pass away younger than I am today, one from ALS, one from chronic disease that finally took his life in his early 50s. One thing we've seen common to all human beings is the fact that our emotional state drives a huge array of physiological processes that we can actually interact with. And what you see on this slide is that any of us who feel frustration with the long lines at CVS, with the status of our stock portfolio, with traffic, creates a pattern in our heart that is debilitating long-term and robs us of clear cognitive function in the short term. That top pattern is what we see with virtually every human being, a chaotic rhythm. On the other hand, people can learn very rapidly to change out of the stress response into a more healthy, smooth, efficient pattern, which you see illustrated in the rhythm on the bottom. Now, we took that core concept and said we've got to make that available to people everywhere, consumers, organizations, healthcare systems. What if nurses had a device they could give to a patient prior to surgery or after surgery? What if they could give that device to the family, who are often the biggest problem with the patient, hovering over and worrying about the progress of the patient? What if they could give that same technology to the caregiver, who is the husband or the wife of the chronically ill spouse, or the adult child of the aging parent who's going through massive issues, mentally, emotionally, physically? Go to the next slide. So the core understanding was that as we change what goes on in our heart, that has profound implications for the vitality of our system, the functioning of our cognitive processes, and this slide just gives an example of the direct connection between managing what goes on in our heart and impact in our brain. Go to the next slide. So the concept of M-Wave personal stress reliever kind of arose out of this term we've come to call biofeedback. 30 years ago, biofeedback was pretty clunky. It was heavy equipment, you measured brain waves, you wore really attractive things on your head like you see pictured there. Really practical for daily life. You find yourself in a tough business negotiation. Let me hang on my skull cap for a moment while we continue this conversation. In other words, not terribly practical. Back about 8 years ago, we launched a PC version, taking this concept of managing the rhythms of the heart. You can click to the next image on the screen, and made it available to consumers and organizations in your PC. So instead of having to wear something on your head, a simple finger or ear sensor is able to track what goes on in the heart in real time and display it on the screen. Then over the years, a number of health professionals and seniors said, can't you give me something portable? I don't really want to have to be in front of my computer all the time. So we recently released this device, the M-Wave Personal Stress Reliever, which is a miniature way of doing what our software product has done. It's this size. It weighs less than a cell phone. It is so light, it is so easy to use. I am a user. I'm not only the president of the company, I'm also a customer. And I use this because I lost two brothers younger than me. I use this because I run a very complex business that is a technology manufacturing company and a training company, and we do things in multiple languages, very complex. I occasionally have stress. And this has been an extremely valuable tool for me to manage myself through a challenging business environment. Go to the next slide. So basically, M-Wave was the solution that we came up with as a way of giving the end user at any age the ability in the palm of their hand to not only track the stress that they have, but more importantly, change that stress response into a healthier, more beneficial response. I'll just make one last comment. Am I out of time? 1 minute. This device is being used now with military before they deploy to Iraq. This device is being used in 35 VA medical centers and Army medical centers for returning soldiers and with veterans. We have a massive problem in this country and other countries who participate in the conflict overseas with people returning with PTSD The symptoms may not develop for years. Recently talked to a young man who was a driver in Iraq. He was very concerned about coming back with PTSD. The reason was, in Vietnam, his father was a driver in the Vietnam conflict, came back with PTSD, never recovered and committed suicide. And the man I know is a young boy. 30 years later, he's a driver in a conflict, comes back worrying about what's going to happen to him. His clinician at his VA in Topeka, Kansas said, "You need to try this thing and see if this can help you." He's now become kind of a poster child for what the improvements can be. So thank you for inviting me, and if you've ever had any stress, this might be useful.